This video is going to be my final review of the KBO Hurricane. So I did an initial review, which I'll link in the description below. I'm not going to go into near as much detail. I just want to talk about my final thoughts of the bike. So if you're not familiar with KBO bikes, they make affordable e-bikes, commuter bikes, I should say. And this one is a flat bar style road bike. So they only have 3 models in their lineup right now. They have the Hurricane, they have the Breeze, which I'll be reviewing pretty soon, and then the Breeze Step Through. And so this one is their lowest price one. It's about $1,100 retail. And like I said, it is an e-bike. So who is this bike for? That's what I want to talk about first in this video. This bike is actually ideal for someone who needs a lightweight e-bike. It doesn't have the most powerful motor, but you gain the advantage of having a bike that's only 36 pounds. So if you're the kind of person who has to carry your bike up and down stairs, so maybe you live in an apartment and you want to get around town on an e-bike, but you got to hoist the thing up some stairs, this is a great option. So 36 pounds, that's about the weight of an enduro mountain bike. Also, it's a good e-bike for someone who wants simplicity. So it's a single speed, which means you don't have a derailleur, you don't have a chain that you have to maintain, replace, lube, and it's a hub drive single speed. So it's not the kind that has the gearbox on the crankset. So that actually adds to a little bit of simplicity. It does add to a little bit of maintenance issue as far as changing the rear tire, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But again, it's a very simple design. Someone else who may want a lightweight e-bike is someone who has to put the thing on and off a bike rack, and you don't want to use one of those ramps that you can put on your bike rack. So 36 pounds, easily you can lift it up on a bike rack. Now, some other e-bikes, like the Breeze and other e-bikes that I've ridden, they're pushing 60 to 65 pounds. So at 36 pounds, again, you can move this thing around pretty easily. Finally, I think this bike is good for someone who doesn't need a ton of pedal assist. So it's got a 345 watt-hour motor, so it'll give some pretty good pedal assist, but it's not like the kind of e-bikes where you just barely touch the pedals and the thing goes. You got to put some effort into it. For example, when you're going up a hill, the motor will give you definitely some pedal assist, but you still got to put some effort into it. Some e-bikes, when you put it on the highest setting, you barely have to put in any watts. This bike is good for someone who, they don't need that. In other words, they don't want the bike to do all the work for them. They still want to pedal and get a workout, but there are times when you want pedal assist. And by the way, like I said in the first video, this one has 3 levels of pedal assist. I typically use the highest, the number 3. And in that setting, again, the bike doesn't just lurch forward like some e-bikes do. It takes getting up to about 5 miles an hour. Once you get to about 5 to 6 miles per hour, then the motor really starts to take over. But like I said, when you're going up hills, 5–6% grades, you're gonna have to put some effort into it to get the bike up the hill. Now, you go up a lot faster than a standard bike, because it is an e-bike, but I just want to mention that. So after riding this bike for a while, I'm actually pretty impressed with the quality for an $1,100 e-bike. And I'll give you an example of a really high-end e-bike, and that's a Niner RLT9. It goes 28 miles per hour. It has a 500 watt-hour motor, and that bike is carbon, and it retails for about $5,600. So this bike at $1,100, it makes a lot of sense. I think someone else that this bike is good for is maybe you already have a bike or two and you just want an e-bike to get around town to add to your fleet, but you don't want to invest a lot of money into it. This makes a really good option. Also, like I said in the first video, you can add fenders, you can add a rack to this. I have not done that, but if you wanted to add a rack to put some panniers or a little rack trunk on the back of it, you could do that. The disc brakes on this bike actually work really well. They're pretty powerful. And since they are disc brakes, you're still going to get some good braking power when conditions get wet. So impressed with the brakes on this bike, actually. I also mentioned in that opening video of this bike that the flat bar style road bike is my favorite style of commuter bike, just because of how agile they are. Like, you're getting around town and you may have to go between some cars, or you're on a section of street where you've got to be pretty agile and nimble. That's why I like these flat bar road bikes for commuting. Now, the handlebar on this bike is pretty narrow. It may be too narrow for people who are used to a really wide mountain bike handlebar, but again, for getting around town, urban areas, city areas, I think it's going to be just fine. The tires on this bike are about a 28C tire, pretty decent width for a tire. Again, the skinnier tires make the bike more agile. I actually took this bike on some dirt roads, And the only thing that I didn't like about that is I could hear the battery rattling around inside. So if you're on a really bumpy dirt road or a really bumpy street, you can hear the battery bouncing around inside. And also, like I said in that first video, the battery is contained in the down tube, so it's not removable, which again adds to the simplicity of the bike. So other than the battery bouncing around inside the down tube, the only other issue I've had with this bike is the hop in the rear tire. Again, I mentioned that in the first video. It kind of has a little hop, and I thought maybe it's just because the tire was not seated inside the rim. I tried unseating the tire and putting some soap bubbles in there. I think it's the tire itself. So I may actually reach out to KBO to see if I can get another tire as a replacement, because I think the tire is defective. Now, speaking of that, the one downside to hub style e-bikes is the fact that if you were to get a flat, let's say you're commuting to work and you get a flat tire, you can't just remove the rear wheel easily and change out the tube. And so what I would do if this were going to be my long-term commuter bike is I would change the tires to tubeless, and then I would just carry like a Stan's dart or a plug in case I were to ever get a flat if the sealant did not seal it. So that is the only downside. You got a little bit more complexity back here to get the rear wheel off. It's not something you're just going to pull over real quick and change the rear tire. So again, something that I want to mention about this bike. To keep the price down on their bikes, they only make one size of this bike, and they say it fits someone from 5'6" to 6'6". Now, I'm about 5'8", 5'9", and the bike fits me really well. If you're getting up to 6 foot 6 inches, I think you're going to be leaned over pretty far on this bike, because you'll see that I've got all those spacers underneath the stem, and I'm in a pretty decent position. So the taller you are, the higher you're going to have to put the saddle. So if that's the case and you were pretty tall and wanted to get this bike, I would probably get a different stem to put on this bike to make the handlebars higher. So that is my final review of the KBO Hurricane. Again, I think it's a really decent bike for someone who doesn't need a ton of power in an e-bike. They want a simple bike. They want a bike to just do like fitness type riding where you can turn the pedal assist down to 0 or 1 and get a good workout, and then when you get tired, you just bump up the pedal assist. Maybe you need to add a commuter bike to your fleet. You want an e-bike and you don't want to break the bank. You want something pretty affordable. Those are the type of people I think would do really well with this bike. So any questions or comments that you have, go ahead and drop those below. And like I said, I'll be reviewing the KBO Breeze, which is a more powerful e-bike, really designed for commuting. It's got brake lights and other things. Oh, by the way, this does come with a light, like I said in the first video, but it's not a light that you're going to want to use at night without another light. It's a good safety feature. It's nice to signal to cars that you're on the road, they can see you better. But to have a really bright light, I think you're going to want to add an additional light to this one. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up this review. Like I said, questions or comments, drop those below. Thanks for watching.